My brother ruined our family legacy, and now they want me back. Growing up, our family-owned Italian restaurant, La Bella Vita, was my second home. I practically lived in the kitchen, watching my dad expertly flip pizzas and my mom greet regulars like old friends. From the moment I was tall enough to reach the counter, I was learning the ropes, taking orders, managing staff, and even brainstorming new menu ideas. I loved every bit of it. It wasn't just a business to me, it was a legacy I was proud to carry on. My younger brother, Jake, however, was the opposite. While I spent weekends working double shifts, Jake was out partying or glued to his video games. He never took the restaurant seriously. Whenever Dad tried to involve him, Jake would shrug it off, saying he wasn't cut out for the food industry. It was an unspoken rule in our family that I would eventually take over. Even my parents hinted at it during family dinners, praising my dedication and leadership skills. So, when Dad called for a family meeting one Sunday afternoon, I assumed it was finally happening, the official handover. I was buzzing with excitement, mentally planning the improvements I wanted to make. But nothing could have prepared me for what Dad said next. "I've decided to hand over the restaurant to Jake." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I blinked, sure I had misheard. Jake? The same Jake who couldn't even be bothered to show up on time for family events? I stared at Dad, waiting for him to laugh and say it was a joke. But his face was stone-cold serious. "Jake needs this opportunity to grow," Dad continued, glancing nervously between me and my brother. "He's been showing interest lately, and I believe with the right guidance, he can turn things around." Jake sat there, smirking like he'd just won the lottery. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, a mix of anger and disbelief. I opened my mouth to argue, but Mom placed a gentle hand on my arm, silently urging me to stay calm. "What about me?" I finally managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "I've dedicated my entire life to this place. How can you just pass me over?" Dad sighed, avoiding my gaze. "You've always been capable, Emma. I know you'll land on your feet. Jake, on the other hand, needs this chance." It felt like a slap in the face. All those years of hard work, the sacrifices I made, suddenly meant nothing. I couldn't believe my own father thought Jake deserved the business more than I did. I left that meeting without saying another word, my mind spinning. How could Dad betray me like this? In the days that followed, I tried to come to terms with it, but the bitterness only grew. Friends and even some of the restaurant staff were shocked when they heard the news. They knew how much I had poured into the business. Some even hinted that the place wouldn't last long under Jake's management. But Dad had made his decision. And for the first time in my life, I felt completely adrift. I couldn't stay and watch Jake run the restaurant into the ground, but walking away felt just as painful. I had no idea what my next step would be, but one thing was clear, I couldn't be a part of this betrayal. The days after Dad's shocking decision felt like a blur. I wandered through my small apartment, staring at the walls, trying to comprehend how everything I had worked for was just gone. Every corner of my life was intertwined with La Bella Vita. I couldn't even pass by the restaurant without a sharp pang in my chest. The sign, once a symbol of family and hard work, now felt like a cruel reminder of what I had lost. Jake wasted no time stepping into his new role. He posted pictures on social media, boasting about being the new boss. He even renamed some of the classic dishes, calling it a modern twist. It was insulting. The regular customers who had been loyal for years looked confused, and some even stopped coming. I heard whispers from old staff members that Jake was cutting corners, ignoring suppliers, and slashing hours to save money. The foundation of the business that I had helped build was crumbling, and I couldn't do a thing about it. One evening, I got a call from Maria, the head waitress who had worked with us for over a decade. "Emma, it's a mess here. Jake doesn't listen to anyone. We're losing customers, and the kitchen is in chaos. This isn't La Bella Vita anymore. Her words hurt, but they also solidified my decision. I couldn't just linger in the shadows, hoping things would fix themselves. But going back wasn't an option either. The betrayal still burned too deep. I needed a fresh start, away from the weight of family expectations. So, I began looking for jobs in other restaurants. My resume was strong: years of experience managing operations, menu development, and customer service. But every interview felt hollow. They'd ask why I left La Bella Vita, and I would give them a half-hearted answer about wanting to explore new opportunities. I even considered moving to another city, maybe Boston or Chicago. Somewhere I could reinvent myself. But every time I packed a bag, something held me back. This city, despite its painful memories, was still home. Then, one night over a drink with my best friend, Sarah, she asked, "Why don't you open your own place? You've got the experience, the ideas, why not make something that's truly yours?" Her suggestion seemed absurd at first. Starting a restaurant from scratch required capital, a location, staff. It was overwhelming. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I had spent years running a business. Why couldn't I do it for myself? I began sketching out ideas: a cozy bistro that combined traditional Italian comfort food with modern twists. I wanted a place that felt warm and welcoming, where every customer felt like family. I started reaching out to old contacts, suppliers who respected me, and even staff members who hinted they might jump ship from La Bella Vita. But despite my growing excitement, the pain of Dad's decision lingered. Part of me still longed for his approval, for him to recognize the mistake he had made. But I knew I couldn't wait for that validation. I had to build something on my own terms. And so, with a blend of fear and determination, I took the first steps toward creating my own legacy, one that didn't rely on family decisions or broken promises. This was going to be mine, and no one could take it away. The weeks turned into months, and Jake's grip on La Bella Vita weakened with each passing day. Word around town was that the restaurant was slowly falling apart. Loyal customers were drifting away, and the once bustling dining room sat half-empty most nights. I tried to stay focused on planning my own venture, but curiosity, and maybe a bit of lingering attachment, led me to quietly check in on how things were going. Maria texted me one afternoon, "Emma, you need to hear this. Jake fired Tony." Tony had been our head chef for nearly 15 years. His recipes were the heart and soul of La Bella Vita. Replacing him was like ripping out the restaurant's backbone. I couldn't believe Jake would be so reckless. He said Tony was too old school and wanted someone trendier, Maria explained when I called her. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. Tony's food was what kept customers coming back. Without him, the menu was just a collection of poorly executed ideas. Jake had hired some young chef with flashy Instagram photos, but little actual experience running a kitchen. Reviews started popping up online about undercooked pasta, bland sauces, and chaotic service. The La Bella Vita name was becoming a joke. Suppliers I used to work with began reaching out to me. "Emma, Jake hasn't paid us in weeks. We're thinking of cutting ties. Is there anything you can do?" I wanted to say no, to let Jake deal with the consequences of his actions. But hearing how deep the damage ran made it hard to ignore. Staff morale had hit rock bottom. Maria mentioned that some employees were quitting without notice, unable to handle the mismanagement. Even family friends who had supported our restaurant for years were quietly pulling away. Then, the breaking point came. One night, I got a frantic call from Maria. "Emma, there was a health inspection today. They failed. Badly. Jake didn't fix the kitchen leaks or the faulty refrigeration. They're shutting down temporarily." I froze. A health code violation? That was the ultimate disgrace for any restaurant. Dad had always been meticulous about cleanliness and maintenance. This was beyond mismanagement, it was negligence. The restaurant was hanging by a thread. The news spread quickly. Social media blew up with gossip about La Bella Vita closing its doors. Competitors were circling like vultures, eager to snatch up our customers. It was heartbreaking to watch. Dad must have been devastated, though his pride probably stopped him from admitting it. Jake, from what I heard, was panicking. He had no idea how to handle the crisis. His friends, those same people he flaunted his new position to, were nowhere to be found now that things had soured. One evening, as I was reviewing potential spaces for my new bistro, my phone rang. It was Dad. I stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. "Hello?" His voice was quieter than usual. "Emma, we need to talk. It's about the restaurant." I didn't respond right away. Part of me felt vindicated, but another part, one I didn't want to acknowledge, felt a twinge of sadness. This wasn't how I wanted things to go. Jake can't fix this. He doesn't know how, Dad admitted, his voice heavy with defeat. La Bella Vita is falling apart. I think I made a mistake. Hearing those words from him was both satisfying and painful. It wasn't the apology I had dreamed of, but it was close. "What are you asking me, Dad?" I asked, my tone guarded. There was a long pause before he answered. "Come back. Help us fix this. Please." I closed my eyes, taking in the weight of his words. The restaurant I loved was crumbling, and now they were asking for my help. But could I really go back after everything? The choice loomed over me, heavier than I ever imagined. Dad's plea echoed in my mind long after the call ended. I sat there in silence, torn between anger and a deep-rooted sense of responsibility. La Bella Vita wasn't just a business, it was a part of me. But returning meant facing the people who betrayed me, swallowing my pride, and stepping back into a place that no longer felt like home. Days passed, and the weight of the decision grew heavier. Maria called again. "Emma, things are worse than you think. Jake's been trying to run the place alone, and now the suppliers are refusing to deliver. The staff is stretched thin, and customers are demanding refunds. It's a disaster." Her words painted a bleak picture, but what truly shook me was the desperation in her voice. She wasn't just talking about the restaurant, she was talking about the family I had once trusted. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet Dad in person. We sat across from each other in the quiet dining room of La Bella Vita. The air felt stale, and the once vibrant energy of the place was gone. Chairs were stacked on tables, and the flickering lights cast long shadows. Dad looked older than I remembered. His face was lined with stress, and his eyes, once sharp and commanding, were now clouded with regret. "I never should have handed it over to Jake," he admitted, voice low. "I thought giving him responsibility would make him grow up. I was wrong. And now, I need you to come back. To save what's left." I stared at him, searching for any trace of the man who used to guide me with unwavering confidence. But all I saw was someone broken by his own mistakes. "If I come back, it's on my terms," I said firmly. "I run things my way. Jake steps down completely. And you stay out of it. No more interference." Dad hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Whatever it takes. Just bring this place back." It wasn't the apology I deserved, but it was enough. I stood up, taking in the empty restaurant. If I was going to save La Bella Vita, I needed a plan, and fast. The next morning, I called an emergency staff meeting. Familiar faces filled the room, though many were weary and defeated. Maria gave me a hopeful smile, while others watched cautiously. "I know things have been rough," I began, my voice steady. "But starting today, we're making changes. Real changes. First, I'm reinstating Tony as head chef. His recipes built this restaurant, and we need him back." A murmur of approval rippled through the group. Maria beamed. "Second, we're cleaning this place from top to bottom. Health code violations end now. I'm bringing in professionals to handle the repairs. And we're reopening with a new menu that honors our traditions but brings in fresh ideas. The energy in the room shifted. People sat up straighter, exchanging hopeful glances. But I can't do this alone. I need every one of you to believe in this place again. We're family here, and it's time we acted like it. Slowly, they began to nod. For the first time in months, there was a spark of hope. Rehiring Tony wasn't easy. He was hurt by how he'd been treated, but after a long conversation, he agreed to return. Together, we crafted a comeback menu, a mix of beloved classics and bold new dishes. I contacted our old suppliers, promising timely payments and rebuilding trust. Jake, unsurprisingly, was less than thrilled about stepping down. He sulked in the background, but Dad made it clear, this was my show now. I didn't gloat, I didn't need to. His own failures were punishment enough. In the weeks that followed, we worked tirelessly. Floors were scrubbed, equipment repaired, and the dining room redecorated with warmth and charm. We launched a social media campaign, inviting customers to experience La Bella Vita reimagined. Opening night was nerve-wracking. I paced the kitchen, nerves buzzing, but as the doors opened, familiar faces poured in. Old regulars, curious newcomers, the restaurant was alive again. Tony's dishes flew out of the kitchen, each plate a reminder of what made this place special. The staff moved with renewed energy, and the hum of conversation filled the air. Dad watched quietly from a corner table, a faint smile on his face. For the first time in months, La Bella Vita felt like home again. But I knew this was just the beginning. The road to recovery would be long, but I was ready. Because this time, it was on my terms.